What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports NBA Hardwood Show. Times are a little off. I know some people in the chat were saying 5:45. Why is it this time? Don't worry, we're starting now. We're going to lead you not all the way up the lock, but we will get you probably till about 5:20, 5:30, whatever the time is, and then hey, that'll give you time to adjust your lineups with all the news that we got. Got a nice little slate for us today as well to break down. Bryce, I'll go over to you and talk to me about the party. How was the party and everything? Have you recovered? And how are you doing then? Are you ready for the NBA slate?
Yeah, I from the party probably a couple days ago. Once you hit 30, it's a little harder to drink for, 4 straight days or whatever it was. So, I had a blast. It's my first year here, so I think it really helps building chemistry and getting to know everyone. And Wiley always shows everyone a good time in Lexington. I've been down there a couple times. I know you have. So, good meeting everyone, good seeing everyone, and ready to get back to work. I think this is my first show since it.
Yep. I think I don't know when my first show was. I can't even remember. I'm not feeling great, so we're powering through. We're doing what we can. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm sick. I don't know if it's my allergies because it's been a mess over the past couple of days. But hey, we're here to bring the winners, like Seth, the Sunday winners. So if you could please hit that like, that helps us out a lot. We're gonna dive in and talk about the slate. I was asking you pre-show a little bit about the slate because again I've been kind of down a lot for the day, and you were saying like a lot of the plays on this slate are pieces of news that we have been used to for a while. We have the Atlanta situation where they've had the same guys out for a very long time. Orlando, they were missing Suggs, I think, the last game, but clearly a spot that you're going to want to target against Indiana. We also have Miami. I know they're going to be someone that pops up a ton because they're playing Washington. We have the Memphis, who knows who's going to play. And then we have the Cleveland situation, which has been pretty much the same thing for over the past, 4 or 5 games for them. And it's just a lot of spots that we've kind of known, but the question is, how is the pricing going to adjust for it, right? Are these still great plays? Are some of these plays overpriced? Bryce, what was your first overview seeing the slate?
Yeah, I think the Cleveland guys are still too cheap. Like Niang, I think he's really popping at 4.4K. He shoots the ball some. Garland, Allen are good plays as ever. Butler, Rozier, and then you got the Atlanta guys. Like I think Bog is a pretty solid play here. I think Murray's price has adjusted. The most. He's up to 9,500 on DraftKings. I don't really think anyone's going to play him at that, which makes him a pretty good play in my opinion. I've been playing Murray this past week or two, and he's been up and down, but he had a huge game last time, which is the price increase there. I think that FanDuel even raised these guys because Murray had been more of a FanDuel play than a DraftKings play for a bit here, but he's up to 95 on FanDuel too. So it's like, you can't get by with like the 45-point Murray game now. You need like over the 50. So, and they're in better matchups than they have been, like pretty much across the board. Like you mentioned it. Orlando gets Indy, Miami gets Washington, the Pelicans get Atlanta. All pretty solid matchups for these guys. I feel Brooklyn and Cleveland have played each other like 3 times in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely a slate that you basically gotta load up on some of these spots because there's just so many good ones, right? I mean, we like targeting Atlanta, we like targeting Indiana. Also, I know Alex is saying that DiVincenzo is underpriced on FanDuel. Are the Knicks even on the slate today, or am I wrong on this? You're on mute.
Switching through too many tabs here. Yeah, he's definitely underpriced on FanDuel. On DraftKings he's on DraftKings he's 7,300. FanDuel he's only 7K. I think he's definitely popping more on the FanDuel models, but I kind of like playing guys that are like super popular on one site in tournaments, like on the other site, just because like everyone will be like, oh, I'm going to get my exposure for player A on DraftKings and just like fade him on or like be under on FanDuel. So yeah, I think it's a good way to get like solid plays at lower ownership.
Yeah, not my bad. I was looking at the DK tab and I couldn't see the Knicks game. I had to click over. So my apologies again. I'm moving a little slower today because I'm not feeling as great, but we will power through and we'll talk about this first game. So First game up is Pelicans and Atlanta. And speaking of guys that are, different prices on different sites, Bruno Fernando, I think he's fine on both sides, but I think FanDuel specifically, he is going to get pushed a lot harder. We talked about before the show a little bit. The Bruno Fernando situation is definitely a good one. You mentioned before DeJounte Murray he's in like a tough spot right now because his price is up. But if he gets like the full run and like finds a ceiling performance, like he's going to be low owned and you'd want him, right? So how do you handle Atlanta, Bryce? And then how do you handle this Pelicans team that's in a great spot with like Zion against power forwards, right? The Hawks are horrible against power forwards. Great spot for someone like Zion. This is definitely a game that you can't completely ignore.
Yeah, I like both sides of the game here. This is definitely a game I'm going to be over on. Been slamming Atlanta with some of this news. I think Sadiq Bey, he had an absolutely horrible game out last time, and he's kind of a high variance player because all he really does is shoot threes and get stocks. But that's what you want in tournaments. He's my favorite play that's likely to go under the radar here. I think he's too cheap. I think as a whole, this game is going to be more popular on FanDuel than DraftKings. So I kind of like attacking it on both sites. We'll start with Atlanta here since I went to Bay first. Bog is a good play. He's only 6,400 and he's reasonably priced on FanDuel as well. Murray's a guy I've been over on for the last week. He finally did it last game. So, his price is up. I don't think people are going to be willing to play him at this price. I definitely want to be over the field on him. I just think he has a ton of upside here. The rest of the team is so bad around him. He really does take on like a massive usage rate. I think he had an absurd amount of their points last game, which is why he went off, obviously. But yeah, I think Bruno is, I think he's going to be one of the more over-owned players on the slate. To be honest, I think there's other good value. Like he's definitely going to be in my pool, but it's likely a stance I'm going to take under on with him. You have Hunter back in the rotation. They started Vic Krejci last game, and that didn't really work out for them that much. But if he starts again, I think you do have to consider some shares at 3,400. He played 22 minutes. It's not a sexy play, but he can grind you out 20. Capella, I think he's very solid. I think you kind of have to play big against this Pelicans team. So I like him as well. Moving to the Pelicans side of the ball, it's kind of, I like the Pelicans like big three, and then Joe Val to an extent as well. I touched on what a good matchup it is for Zion here. He's my favorite play. Ingram, McCollum, and then Joe Val. I think Herb Jones, is playable. I think Trey Murphy is playable. Neither are my favorite plays, but yeah, I think I would mainly stick to the big three from the Pelicans. It's a really good matchup against Atlanta. They don't play as fast without Trey, but they also don't play any defense. The one guy who does play defense, Murray, will be guarding CJ, so it makes me like Zion and Ingram more than him.
All right. Again, pretty good game. Not one of the best games on the slate, though. There's definitely better games to target. I would say at least two specifically, and there could be more that pop up with value as well that could become better games. Let's go to Houston and Sacramento. I don't think this is a game that a lot of people are targeting. For one, Şengün, what he's been doing over the past like 3-4 games, he's been incredible. I mean, the Portland game, he wasn't great, but he's shown the ceiling, right? And this is a matchup where you could definitely see the ceiling game. I also think you could see the ceiling game from Sabonis. So in tournaments, I think both of those guys, they're definitely in the conversation for sure. The rest of the plays, I'm not that excited about. I'd say Amen Thompson is probably the best point per dollar or value play here. Going against Sacramento Kings, they don't play a lot of defense. They play at a pretty fast pace. A lot of points are scored. I think you can make a pretty strong case for him. I know Kevin Huerter's price is down. He's been pretty bad. You could make a case that that's like a buy low spot on him, but man, he's just been so bad. So for me, I'm trying to steer pretty clear of this game. I don't think the Sacramento side is amazing. If you wanted to make the case, like I said, for Fox or Sabonis' contrarian spends or Şengün, perfectly fine. But I really see myself only targeting Amen Thompson here, Bryce. How about you?
I think I'm a little higher than you on this game. Overall, I do agree that Amen is a good play. I also think Cam Whitmore is a good play. He's really carved himself out a role if you're looking for some value. Other than them, I would rather go to to the Houston side of the value than the Sacramento side. Monk is a good play for Sacramento. He's been taking so much of Herder's role, which is why his price is down like this. And, he's a pretty high usage player. He can definitely get there in this spot, and then I do like the studs to some extent. I'm definitely going to have Fred VanVleet and Smith in my pool. I think Sengun's going to be a pretty solid contrarian spend, to be honest, today. So I like him. And then, the Sacramento big two. Of the two, I prefer Sabonis to Fox, but I'm going to be playing them both as well. I just think it's a pretty solid spot for more of the spends than the value here. But my favorite value is Thompson and Whitmore. And then I think Monk's a solid play as well.
All right. I don't hate the Monk call. He's one I'm torn on. He does feel expensive, but I still get it at the price for sure. Let's move on over to the next game. Indiana and Orlando. And Indiana is one of those teams that we typically like to target. But, Bryce, here's the problem. So Jalen Suggs is out. Sounds great. But do I actually want to play these other Orlando guys? Do I want to play 4.7K Cole Anthony, maybe a Trevlin Queen, a Gary Harris at 4.1, an Anthony Black at 3.5 if he's somehow starting? Like, this just doesn't seem like a spot that I would want to play these guys. But to be fair, it's Indiana. And Indiana is a team you can always play guys against. Like the chat is saying, Caleb Houston. Would you be interested in Caleb Houston at 3.1K as a starter? I mean, it's definitely not the craziest idea here. They have a lot of different guys they can take off the bench and kind of mix and match for different minutes. But I don't know what to do with this Orlando side. The only guy I love, I'd say it's probably Franz Wagner. I think Franz Wagner is probably the best play, the only one that I feel kind of secure about. I don't mind Cole Anthony. But other than that, I'm just not really excited about these guys. I'm curious your take on how to handle these values because I think we already have really good value on this slate.
Yeah. Orlando runs such screwy rotations that, I hate playing them. Even though Caleb Houston starting, the guy just sucks. And, he's kind of out there to do cardio and eat minutes. I really like the Orlando studs, like Franz and Banchero. I think you can make a case for a Wendell Carter and a Cole Anthony. I'd prefer Cole Anthony to any of these Orlando guards. He's my favorite one there today. I don't imagine myself being incredibly high on Gary Houston or Caleb Houston, Gary Harris or Caleb Houston. So I think those guys might go a little over-owned in their starting roles. It's just, they're all going to play 20 minutes. I don't think any of them are really going to play the massive minutes and get you the huge score that you need to win some of these tournaments today. Going over the Indiana side of the ball, they're going to be super low owned. I don't think anyone's playing these guys, which, in a vacuum, to me, makes them a good play. I like playing guys that absolutely no one's going to be on. When you can get Halliburton 9K at under 5%, nobody's going to play Tyrese Halliburton today. I think that's a super solid contrarian play. Other than him, I think some of the rotation guys are okay. Not my favorite. Siakam, Turner, always have in my pools. And then, Nesmith with Mathurin out, I think you really do see him take on a bigger role. And then Jalen Smith, I think, can actually get a decent amount of run here. And he's a super good point per minute guy. So, him at 4K. And then, even on FanDuel, he can contribute a good amount of blocks and steals. I think he's a really under the radar value play.
Yeah, I think the Jalen Smith's a good call. He's someone I feel like when I was looking, I kind of overlooked, so I added him back to some of my stuff. Kevin's wondering, he thought this started at 4:45. That's okay. Reminded Kevin, we will not be going up to lock. We're going to be out of here probably 5:20, 5:30. So you'll have enough time. So you'll get all the advice from us. And if you could, you're showing up late, please hit that like. We would appreciate it. You did make some good calls on the Tyrese Halliburton thing. No one's going to play him, right? He's going to be a contrarian stud. I totally agree with that take, but it has felt like ever since, if you look at Orlando, ever since they got Siakam back, on that team, Halliburton just hasn't been the same, right? He's shown upside at times, but he's definitely shown a bad floor. So I don't want to play him when he's chalky, but when he's not owned, I'm definitely interested in him. So I think that's a good call in tournaments. Let's keep moving this thing along. Let's go on over to Washington and Miami. And this is a really good game right here. Miami is going to be a team that I think we load up on today. We don't have Tyler Hero. We haven't had him for a while. Washington is a team that we like to target. Terry Rozier, he's been playing some really healthy minutes. He is someone that I think is a really safe play, has upside as well at the price. Jimmy Butler, 8.4K. You can make a case for other plays over him for sure. You could make a case of a Franz Wagner, Zion, and all these other guys in this range. But Jimmy is still a good play. I think he's definitely a strong option that I will be considering. I think Duncan Robinson, his minutes haven't been bad. He's been up and down, but Washington is a team that doesn't play defense, and that's where Duncan Robinson could hit the three ball. Also, Caleb Martin has started playing pretty consistent minutes too. I don't mind him here. It's a pretty good matchup against Washington. And then Bam Adebayo at 8-2. I think he is going to be a pretty chalky play, and for good reason. It's just centers against Washington absolutely crush. And Bam Adebayo is going to play a lot of different minutes. Like, he's going to play a lot. Like, he's going to be out there for, I don't know, probably that consistent 30 to 38 minutes. Like, you just know he's going to be out there. There's no reason he's going to lose rotation. So Bam Adebayo, great play here. Washington is a little bit tougher for me. We've been playing them a lot, but prices have gone up. This is a slow pace. Kyle Kuzma is 8.3K. Yes, they are still missing Marvin Bagley. I am very curious if Rashawn Holmes starts. He is questionable for this game. If he started, I don't think he's a stone lock like he was the other day. I think the price is too high, and versus matchup is not as good of a play. I think he'll be an interesting play, but not this slam play like he was the other day. He was all over my stuff, so I'm sure you are all over him as well. And then if you look at some of these other options, like Denny Avdia 6'8". Again, I think the ceiling's there, but I think this matchup isn't easy. There's less possessions against the Miami Heat. I kind of consider the Miami Heat a very similar matchup to playing the Knicks, where the pace is just slower. So I'm more cautious with these guys like Jordan Poole at 6'5". I saw he was popping. If he's going to have ownership, I don't think I'm interested in him. Tyus Jones at 6'3". I'm just not as excited about Washington. Now, if I had a couple of them here and there, am I going to blow my whole lineup up? No, I'm not going to blow it up. But I would just be cautious with Washington, because I think they've been in this spot recently where they've been in really good spots to target, and they were really cheap, where you just couldn't really ignore them. And now I think it's the opposite. I think they are kind of pricey. You can make a case for their ceilings, but you don't want to be too overexposed to this Washington team. What about you, though, Bryce? I'm assuming Washington you're not going to be super high on, but you'll have some exposure in tournaments, and then I assume the Heat will be one of those teams you'll be loading up on today.
If Holmes starts, I'm going to be over on Holmes for sure. I think it's kind of hard to play against Bam without like a traditional center. So, I think Holmes, like if he starts, he's locked into playing a ton unless he fouls. I had Holmes as a stone lock the other night. I played him in all 150 teams, and I was significantly over on FanDuel. He was more expensive on FanDuel than he was on DraftKings, and it's the same situation tonight. Now with his price bump, I'm not going to be like quite as high on him, but he's like the one wizard that really stands out to me here. You can always make a case for Kyle Kuzma. Poole's a guy I'm always under on, even if he's going to shoot the ball, 17 times. When's the last time Poole got 7 assists, 5 boards, and picked up 5 stocks? I just don't see that happening again against the Heat team. So, Poole, I'm definitely going to be under on. Tyus Jones is kind of a meh play to me. There are guys I'd rather get in. I think Kispert's a pretty solid play. He got 30 minutes last game. He had kind of a down game in like the peripheral stats. I think he's pretty solid here. But yeah, it's kind of Holmes or bust for me. Moving over to Miami, I think you kind of have to like Miami. I would rank them Rozier, Bam, then Butler as part of the big three. And then the secondary pieces, I would rank Caleb Martin, then is it Hovick or Jovic? I never know how to say this dude's name, but I like playing him when he's. Yeah, I love playing him when he starts. He's really had, good games for me, and he would need to start in the spot for me to play him. But Duncan and Jaquez are kind of more like the tournament plays for me out of this group. So yeah, I would limit to 3 Heat, but I'm fine being well over on the Heat. I wouldn't go 4 Heat. Like, they're good values. They're not like unbelievable values where I'd open it up to 4. But yeah, I think it's viable that 3 of them get there. I think it's less viable that like Bam, Butler, and Rozier all get there. Like maybe like a 1 or 2 max of those 3, and then like have some cheaper guys mixed in. But yeah, it's a really good spot for them.
Yeah, one thing they call out this slate specifically, like if you're playing cash games or considering what's the optimal route people are going, they're loading up on 4-3 Heat and 4-3 Cavs. Like, just what a lot of the builds are going to do. It's just they're some of the best plays, and like it's like the mid-tier balance with some of the values that are just underpriced. So that's just what's going on today. Not saying it's wrong, just explaining what I'm seeing and how you can take advantage of that. I agree. I kind of probably want max of 3 of them. I don't know. I would be curious if like a max of like 5 of like the Heat and Cavs. I don't know if that's like a good idea, but what do you think about that? That's something I sometimes think about when there's just 2 clear spots that everyone's pounding. Bryce, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever really end up with over 5 guys from 2 teams in my lineups just because like I turn randomness up a bit and kind of hit like if I max 3 on each team with a little bit of randomness, like I'm really never going to get 6 guys, a 3-3 stack from different games. But if you wanted to hard limit it to 5, that's totally fine with me. Like I think these guys are good plays. They're not great plays to where it's like, oh, like I'm locking someone, make it a 4 max situation and like give me run backs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just know how people hand build, and like I could see people just getting lazy and just being like, hey, let me plug this guy in because he's a really good player, and then you end up with 6, and I just don't know if that's correct today. So
I don't think it is.
There are some good plays on the board, right? Like it's in other games. Like, yeah, sure, there's not like specific spots to just like load up on, but there's good plays that you can pick and choose from each game. So I think that's a good talking point there. Let's shift on over to Memphis and OKC. And honestly, we don't have all of this news here. So the key situation is Jordan Goodwin, doubtful. GG, questionable. Luke Kennard, questionable. Conchar, doubtful. Vince Williams Jr., questionable. I'll admit, I don't really know how to break this down on the Memphis side of the ball. You just kind of have to be in the Discord. We'll break it all down in there. I feel like it's hard to know based on who's in and out. But this is a spot where you have to watch for it. You just can't set your lineup and just move on today. You have to watch for this because some really good value plays could open up. Bryce, what's your overall takeaways on how to handle this Memphis and OKC game?
So Memphis is super hard to break down right now with, we have absolutely no news. Hopefully we get some in about 35 minutes here at 5:30. We'll be breaking it all down in Discord. I'm going to be hanging out in there all day. So feel free to ask me any questions there. If all these guys are in, like say Vince and Kennard play, I think Kennard would be a really good play simply because they have like no ball handlers. Same with Vince. If they're out, then they're just gonna they just simply don't have anyone. Like who would be the primary ball handler for them? Like Goodwin, Kennard, and Vince Williams are all out. There's just not a lot of people on the team. Like even like a Jake LaRavia would be like a good play in my opinion. So it's a pretty tough situation. I'm kind of hoping that these guys sit and I just get to jam Memphis value like when people won't adjust. So that's kind of my hope here. But yeah, it's kind of hard to do it without the news just because like they have so many guys questionable here. Assuming that they all play, I think Kennard is a very solid play. I would rank it Kennard, Williams, then Jaren Jackson. I don't really want to play like a Jake LaRavia type of guy if all these guys are in. So, it's totally news dependent on the Memphis side of the ball. On the OKC side of the ball, you obviously have some blowout concern. If you're a little more worried about the blowout than I am, like you can limit it to like max, like 1 or 2 OKC, but like Chet can get there in a blowout. I mean, even SGA can get there in a blowout. If he absolutely nuts in 3 quarters, it just happens. I think Jalen Williams is okay. Not really my favorite spot for OKC. If the Memphis guys play, I'm a little more interested in them because, like, if the Memphis guys don't play, I don't see how this game stays remotely close.
Yep. Do you think that's good points you brought up? Again, that Memphis situation, like you were mentioning, great spot to swap to, like you said, if the news does fall right. If you do swap to it, though, keep this in mind. The games that will already probably be locked if you don't have the news: Atlanta Pelicans, Rockets Kings, Indiana Orlando, and Washington and Miami. And you might be locked into like more than half your lineup. I'm not saying backload your team. I'm just saying like that is a factor that's playing into this slate. If you did decide to do this, you'd probably be getting off of, I'd say probably Cavaliers plays. And my assumption would be you'd probably be getting off of the Sam Merrills, the Leverts, the Georges Niang, Okoro, Craig Porter, some of the cheaper options or mid-tier ones. That's kind of my overall takeaway on that. Let's keep moving along. Brooklyn and Cleveland. Let's talk about that game. Brooklyn and Cleveland is definitely a good game to target. Cleveland's in a great spot. It's a Jared Allen revenge game. Darius Garland at 8K, definitely in the conversation today. And starting lineup does matter. I think Sam Merrill, 4-3. If he's starting, he'll be a great play. Georges Niang, he can be a great play at 4.4K. I want to know what the starters are going to be. I think Karis LeVert can have a good game off the bench, but I do think there is downside at 6-6. So, Bryce, break down the Cleveland options and how you want to handle them. And then Brooklyn, it's just been a bit of a disaster trying to figure them out. Sure, some of these prices are up on like Dennis Schroeder and Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton, but I do think at their prices, they still have tournament winning performances in them. So I'm not completely ignoring Brooklyn, but it's clear as day that you want to like these Cavs way more. Maybe you get max of like 1 or 2 Brooklyn and move on. But how do you handle the Cavs?
I'll touch on Brooklyn real quick. Anytime you put Cam Thomas, a guy who's going to shoot 30 times in the lineup on a minutes limit, when he's been out, all their prices are priced for Cam Thomas not playing. He's going to take so much of their offense. I think Brooklyn was one of my absolute least favorite teams of the day here. It's kind of a spot I don't want to really target. Like, I'm not going to take, I don't know, like a Bridges, like totally out of my pool. I think Claxton would be my favorite one if I had to choose. Like a Dorian Finney-Smith, like he's still going to play big minutes. He just kind of runs cardio. I think he's a better play on FanDuel than DraftKings. I'd say he's my favorite net, him and Claxton. But the guards from the Nets are way too pricey, in my opinion, with Cam Thomas back. So I'm going to be under on them. Moving over to the Cleveland side of the ball, I think Sam Merrill and Niang start again. My guess is it's Garland, Merrill, Okoro, Niang, Allen. I think that Merrill and especially Niang are two of the better value plays on the slate. So, I'm fine. Like, say you want to be over on these late games and you want like to leave some more room for the Memphis news. I would just build it like super Cleveland heavy, and then you could swap some of that Cleveland exposure to the Memphis guys. So you'd be like split a little more. And then like if the Memphis news doesn't break your way, you just keep your Cleveland exposure because they're great plays. I think the values are good. I think Garland, Allen are really solid spins here. It's not a good total. It's a 207 total. I understand that. I wouldn't go max. I would definitely go max 3 on Cleveland. But what I don't want to eliminate like a Merrill, Niang, Allen team. Like that could easily be the winner. So that's kind of why I'm keeping 3 max to Cleveland here.
Yep, agree on that. Let's keep moving this thing along. Last game of the slate. So, guys, please hit that like. We would appreciate it. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks. And this is not a bad game. I don't think it's amazing on DK. I'll at least call that out. I think on FanDuel, it's a much better game. I know someone in the chat said Dante DiVincenzo's cheap over there. He's only 7K. Kyle Lowry seems like an interesting option. I don't mind Kelly Oubre. I think there's more plays on FanDuel than there are on DK for me, Bryce. Maybe you have a different opinion on that. I know Josh Hart. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but in the past, it was such a great tweet. It was guys that have played 40 minutes in 8 games in a row. Okay. When do you think the last time that happened? Josh Hart did it the other day. 40 minutes in a row, 8 games in a row. When do you think the last time that happened was? What year?
2008.
Not that one. It was like 2015 or 16, around there, which is still a while.
Was it a Tibbs coach Bulls team? Probably.
It's a good question. There was some guy, what he did was he basically scrolled, and he had from 2002 to like 2024, he had the whole list of them, and he just scrolled. And then when it got to like the year 2016, it was just no one, and then Josh Hart, which it's just crazy because Josh Hart's minutes have been insane. And he's 7.5K, but I still think he's good in tournaments as well. So I thought that was an interesting thing I saw on Twitter. But overall, what do you want to do here with the Knicks and the Sixers?
Don't absolutely love this game. I think it's a pretty decent contrarian spot. Like this is the type of spot where I like to play like the Knicks guys who I know are going to get minutes. Brunson, I could definitely see him like having a very solid game. Like Tibbs doesn't really care about minutes limits, in my opinion. We saw him play 29 minutes the other day. I think his minutes could be up here. I don't think anyone's going to play him. I don't think he's the worst contrarian play. Hart and DiVincenzo, I think, are really good guys to fill out your lineup that are going to play absolutely massive minutes. You know exactly what you're getting there. Hart has a friendlier price on DraftKings, and DiVincenzo has a friendlier price on FanDuel, which is good to note because I kind of like playing them both on each site just because people play DiVincenzo FanDuel. This is something I touched on earlier. I think that makes him a good play on DraftKings as well, just because he's going to go so low owned. Knicks big guys. I think Precious is the best play of the bunch. I don't like Hartenstein as much. I just don't think he's going to play a ton here. So, I think Precious, Hart, DiVincenzo. I might max 2 just because all these Knicks guys are expensive. I don't really see 3 of the Knicks studs being in it, but I could definitely see 2. So it's kind of how I'd approach them. Moving over to Philly, I think you get some good value with Philly here. Lowry, once again, way better play on FanDuel with the stock stuff. It kind of depends who starts for them. I have it as Lowry, Hield, Oubre, Tobias, and Bamba. Bamba's been a massive bust starting. Paul Reed ends up playing him more than most games. Don't have a ton of love for him. Tobias Harris is priced up now. I kind of like Oubre and Hield the most of these guys, and then Lowry on FanDuel. I kind of like the mid-tier guys. There's a lot of shots to go around. It's not the prettiest game, but it's a game that a lot of these guys are going to have to play big minutes in. So don't mind it whatsoever. Hield, Oubre. I think max 2 on this game might be a good way to go about it. It's not my favorite game, but I definitely think it's you want exposure to these guys who are going to be playing mega minutes.
Yeah, I actually don't mind the max 2 thing that you're talking about, just because I just think some of the prices are up, especially on the Knicks. And I agree with what Alex said. Well, if they go small, you play Precious. Yeah, I think you could, but I would just be cautious, right? You could play Hart. You could play these guys as tournament darts, but just be careful of how much you're playing. I think they definitely can be in the pool for sure, but this is not a game I want to load up on. This is a game I want to be well under on for sure. But yeah, overall though, definitely a game that's better on FanDuel than DraftKings. All right, let's go plays of the day, Bryce. I'll go first just because I want to get mine out of the way. I like Dennis Schroeder. We haven't talked about him enough, but I think he's a really good play. If the game stays close, I think he can definitely have a very big game in Cleveland. This isn't the normal Cleveland team, right? They're not blowing teams out. Dennis Schroeder's minutes have been incredible, 39 and 39 the past 2 games. I think he could have a big performance. So give me Dennis Schroeder as my play of the day. What about you, Bryce? Who do you got?
I'm going to go with Sadiq Bey. He was a massive letdown in a huge chalk spot the other night. He's going to have to play mega minutes here. If he gets hot from 3, he's going to put up a big score. So I like him to have a bounce back game here. Game log watchers won't like him as much. Hand builders won't like him as much. I really like Sadiq in this spot.
Right, like the call. A couple things I'll mention before we get out of here. Again, please hit that like. We would appreciate it. Second thing, we got March Madness coming up, and we're going to have a March Madness package. So if you are not someone that is signed up at Run Pure Sports, and let's say you like college basketball, well, we'll have a package for you if you want to get in on that. Let's say you like basketball and you do want to get on that and all the sports, then sign up right now. Use that code RPS15, get you 15% off. It's not active yet for the college basketball stuff, but it will be shortly. Don't you worry. And we got one more week left till it really starts to get going, right? Because after this week, it'll be good. What were you gonna say, Bryce?
Yeah, Steve absolutely crushes. Steve Boynton, our college basketball guy. I don't get to play here in Indiana as much as I want to, just because you can't play college sports here. But if you're in a state where it's legal, guys, I absolutely have the best college product in the country, in the industry, bar none. We also have a great March Madness tournament. It has $5,000 free dollars added to any Run Pure Sports member who is willing or who wants to join. So I think that's a really fun bracket contest. So we'll be adding some merch to that and whatnot as well. Never been a better time to sign up, and I absolutely love March Madness and can't wait to play some because I'm not going to be in Indiana for it.
Nothing. Before you know it, the Masters will be around the corner. It's going to be a good time, so be sure to check all of that out. But for me, Mangone and Bryce, we will see you guys later.